Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dogs and cats, children, as well as babies, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Driveline Academy podcast. I'm your host, Deven Morgan, Director of Youth Baseball Driveline, founder of the Driveline Academy, and you're tuned into the world's most dangerous youth baseball podcast. We are living by that today because for the first time in like a whole lot of episodes, I have a guest. You're not just going to listen to me pontificating ad nauseum within my psychosis in a closed room down at Driveline or on my deck, but instead we have a guest for you today. Maren Angus, who's a reporter for Sports Illustrated, is going to kind of talk us through the situation that's going on with the Little League team from Tulsa, Oklahoma. All sorts of crazy rule violations, lawsuits, restraining orders, eligibility, all the things we've come to know and love about the youth sport experience. And I think very much emblematic of what's going on in our space and some stuff that we got to figure out because, man, this ain't good. So we brought Maren in to just be like an expert kind of on the subject, who's reporting for Sports Illustrated on this, dating all the way back to last year, talking about some softball stuff that took place. Has been phenomenal. So hopefully you stay tuned for that. Only other thing I got for you is quick housekeeping. So drivelinebaseball.com /training/youth. Or just like Google Driveline Training Youth. We got some new stuff for you. The roadmap assessment is live. This is a simplified assessment for youth. And it comes with, we changed the structure a little bit. So it's not just come in and assess and get a PDF. You're going to have a meeting with a human being who's going to talk to you about some stuff. And one of the things we're going to talk to you about is also memberships and lessons. But they're not lessons. We are calling them hitter development and pitcher development lessons because that's the job. We have to develop hitters. We have to develop pitchers. And the way that we do that, through using technology, through using coaching, through using constraints, through using constraint implements, using systems like HitTrax and Blast, intended zones for command tracking. That's what we're doing. So the assessment is the way to get started on that. The membership is the container that gets you access to group training and individual sessions at Driveline. And it's all live in Washington right now. Florida is going to come next, and then Arizona is coming shortly thereafter. So drivelinebaseball.com /training/youth. If I've got the URL wrong, just go Driveline Youth Training in your browser search du jour should get you there. I don't think that like all of those search results have been just like completely screwed up thanks to Google just like whoring out search. Side note, or you can just go to support at drivelinebaseball.com or 425-523-4030. But just Google this stuff online. You should be able to like see the session, figure out what it is, and actually book a session all online. You don't even need to talk to a person, but we got people if you want to talk to them. Other than that, axbat.com, code DL20, 20% off from our friends at Axbat. Usual thing there. Anyways, you'll realize I'm doing, skeptical Toshiro Mifune today because, boy, if this situation about Little League Baseball is not going to bring you a high degree of skepticism, then I don't know what to tell you, man. The signal is not great about the direction that this thing is going. I think it's very easy to just like follow the money and see why it's going that way. But again, the whole purpose of having Maren in today from Sports Illustrated is to get into the weeds of this stuff with an expert on the subject, and then you just got my commentary along the side. So anyways, enjoy this conversation. First time we've had a guest in a long time. We're going to do more of it. It's not just going to be me yelling into the ether. I think we've done enough of that. So next episode that we'll do, I want to talk a lot more about Danny's kind of recruiting college baseball stuff. More about just like the craziness of the summer schedule. But for today, we have shenanigans in youth baseball with myself, Maren Angus from Sports Illustrated. Please enjoy. We are back on the world's most dangerous youth baseball podcast. And unlike the last like 20 episodes we've done, which is just me speaking into my psychosis, either in a room by myself or sometimes on my deck, we are now joined by an actual live human being, another person on the pod that is not me. So for those of you that have said, hey, Deven, you're just talking to yourself too much. Fun fact, I agree. And we've brought a heavy hitter with us today. Maren Angus is with us from Sports Illustrated, the Sports Illustrated, the giant, the behemoth Sports Illustrated. And for men and women of a certain age who grew up with it, man, Sports Illustrated is absolutely it was everything in a pre-ESPN, pre-Barstool, all those other places. So, Maren, this is the second time we've done this
Maren.
interview. Maren.
Calling you out, Maren.
Okay, that's one strike. Maren, we already did version 1 of this, and I forgot to hit record. So I'm going to get in this a little bit more succinctly because I'm just like, in the baseball side, sometimes just roll it. Like you just got to roll it and move on to the next one. So the reason we're talking today and the reporting that you've been doing for Sports Illustrated, we have a team from Tulsa, Oklahoma that made it into the Little League World Series and then now has since been bounced. And there's a whole bunch of steps that took place before that. So give me the genesis of where this starts, which is apparently the start of this is like a year ago.
Yeah. So a year ago, there were several protests that were filed against Tulsa National Little League Softball. And that specific softball team was a semifinalist in the Little League World Series. And a lot of the information about that team came out after, where another Little League in Oklahoma had a bunch of information about boundaries and where the players lived. And specifically, there was a player who tried to register for another league in Oklahoma and was not in the boundary of that league, and then somehow ended up in another league that she didn't live in the boundary for either. So it became a thing. Nothing came of the protests that were filed a year ago, but then fast forward to this year, and more protests were filed against Team Oklahoma softball in the Southwest Region tournament.
Okay, so let me try to approach this from like a Little League rules standpoint. Mm-hmm. I coached in my own local Little League for, I don't know, somewhere around 11, 12, 13 years. I kind of forgot. It's a long time. And for, I think, 9 of those years, I was on the board in one capacity or another. And I think the thing you got to kind of like level set here is a Little League is entirely a volunteer-driven organization, meaning they have no paid staff at the local level. Even at the state level, the admins, the program directors, those aren't paid positions. And I think certainly one of the things that I experienced in my time in Little League was all of like the joys and the flaws of a volunteer-driven organization. And it's wonderful that you have men and women who stepped up, and even sometimes beyond the point where their kids are even in the league, they're still providing an administrative service for that league, because you need that stability. Because like once you lose this type of institutional knowledge where, look, Little League International is going to give you a handbook of stuff, but there's a lot of this just like boots on the ground, how to run your league stuff, that like that knowledge really needs to pass from like president to player president, or from player agent to player agent. Mm-hmm. And specifically once you get to the all-star stuff, because once you get into all-stars, the level of documentation that you need to establish that these kids are playing in the right program and they're eligible to participate is substantial. And it has always been substantial. So like when I saw some of the stuff that was taking place with softball last year, between the fact that I coached, I was on the board, and my kids all played all-stars, I was like, how is this getting past the player agent? And how is this getting past the point where you have to have documentation where it's like signed and reviewed and signatures in triplicate and like all this stuff? It seemed like a very like blatant violation, the way that this started on the softball side again last year, correct?
Right. Correct. Okay. Yeah. And before all of this started, I really wasn't well versed in Little League. The town that I live in that I grew up in does not have Little League. Okay. The town on either side of me does, but where I live is, I think, Dixie Youth. So okay. So I'm not well versed in it, but like through all of this research, I'm like, holy moly! Like you said, the amount of paperwork, the amount of the rules, the all of it is just kind of chaotic, and especially for volunteers. Like to volunteer your time and make sure that all of this paperwork gets through is a full-time job.
Yes, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And the one thing really quick is that last year the issue was a boundary issue, right?
Yes.
So again, to again like level set a little bit, the way that Little League has previously worked is that for you to be eligible for registration within a local Little League, that league has defined basically physical boundaries that you had to exist within.
Yeah.
And the whole issue with like Jackie Robinson West, am I remembering like
Yes.
the whole issue with that organization, which at this point was, I mean, I remember that as being like when I was first on old twitter.com. So probably almost a decade ago at this point, it seems like, all came down to boundary exception.
Yeah.
Now, I seem to recall that in the off season between last year's Little League World Series and this season starting, that Little League International changed some rules about boundary exemptions.
Yeah.
Am I okay?
Yeah. So there are boundary exemptions. And the big one right now is the sibling choice rule,
Which becomes an issue in this story in a very almost like a slapstick comical fashion.
Yeah. So let's get through. So softball goes and enters the Southwest region tournament again. And you have several protests that are filed against them. And the red flag came when a player for Team Oklahoma lives in Arkansas. And
Sure.
while the paperwork that was filed with Little League said she lived in Oklahoma, on Facebook, her school in Arkansas had made a post in March about her being the student of the month. And in order to be eligible for this season, she had to be in school living in Oklahoma by October 1. So that post from March
Whoops.
showed that, yeah. And then on top of that, you also have the whole like nearly intact travel team rule.
Yeah.
Where you cannot be an all-star team or a Little League team as a nearly intact travel ball team. And so this softball team representing Tulsa is a travel team. And
which is just like, and again, I think you can almost approach this from a rule and structure standpoint, because if you look at the rules towards participation, towards boundary exemption, and also towards allowing Little League programs and travel programs to like cross-pollinate on their books, if you look at the Little League rule set 10-ish years ago, there were specific rules that like called these things out and made them not allowed. There was like a strict prohibition against having money on your league's books that would also fund some type of like travel team participation. There was a clearly defined boundary exemption. Mm-hmm. There were, and I think there still are, and we can get into this later in the story, standards about the number of games that you need to play for a league in order to be eligible for something like postseason all-star play. There needs to be rules around what actually approximates a game, which again is a thing that we can get into in this story. And my read, and I don't work for Little League International. This is just me as a guy who's in the space and seen these rules changes over time. It seemed as though the reason that, I'm sorry, let me change. I inferred that the reason that these rules were changing is because there was an attempt to not lose players out of Little League participation who were also doing travel sports, right? I think you're kind of like, my assumption or my interpretation is that they're kind of like reading the tea leaves, and you see that these kids are increasingly the ones who are going to be a competitive all-star player are also double dipping, and they're doing recreational baseball and they're doing travel baseball. Mm-hmm. And because a lot of these programs at the youth level are mom or pop or both administered and oriented, I think if you're running a Little League program, there's a real substantial problem when your best players are lost from the league. And this is something that at least, within the confines of my goofy little show with, 500,000 people listen, that configuration where you're worried about like, hey, well, if the rules don't allow for these people to participate even on a limited basis, we're going to lose them entirely. I think you're talking yourself into making this change and allowing that because of what happens when you lose like your A tier players and the parents that come with them, which oftentimes are going to be your league admins and your board of directors and coaches, right? Mm-hmm. Like it kind of follows that those players are going to have some of the more high performing athletes because they're the most involved parent. And it's psychopaths like me who would coach Little League baseball for 11 or 12 years, right? Like it all comes from the same place. So if you're looking at that kind of like this talent drain and you're concerned that some of that talent drain is coming from the fact that your rules inhibit players from being able to double dip, then it's like, well, what if we just change those rules? And they have changed a lot over the course of the last decade, leading to where we are now.
Yeah. So sorry, I'm getting blown up with.
I can see. Yeah. You just dropped another update to this story, like what, a half hour ago?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's keep working.
So okay. Yes. So all of that. Yes. The part that I think we're at now, and this is my question to everyone who I talk to about Little League, when you mentioned like the elite players, I think Little League is at a crossroads. And I think that Little League has lost its identity. I don't want to say, like, I don't want to blame it on ESPN, but like, I'm kind of blaming it on ESPN.
How do you not follow the money?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And if you want a good product, this is a business. At the end of the day, it's a business, right?
Yes.
And so if you want a good product on TV, you have to have the elite players on TV.
Everybody in the equation has to be in agreement about like, this isn't recreational baseball anymore. Like how could it be recreational when you have multi-year, multi-million-dollar television contracts at play? Mm-hmm. How can that be recreational?
Right. Exactly. And that was kind of the thing, at least for softball growing up. Little League, it's rec. It's rec, right?
It's just supposed to be rec and everything that entails.
To be rec league. And so now, but now it's on national television and it's no longer rec ball. Why would you want to put rec ball on national television?
Yeah.
So if that's the case, and now we want elite players on TV, that you need to make an elite division. And if you have an elite division and you separate those kids from the rec kids, and then that becomes your Little League World Series, I think that would solve a lot of these issues.
Yeah, I mean, just it's like call a spade, right? Like, right. And if we're look, this all feels very idiocracy, the idea that we are searching for a mechanism by which we put the most advanced and competitive 12-year-olds on television. Like, yes. That's one product. And I think you're 100% right that there's like, I think very much just like an identity question at the core of this thing, because the container for it doesn't only serve those players, right? The container for it, at least the way that it was intended. I mean, and this is, I'll pull this from the article that you just posted this morning has a statement from dated today, where the Oklahoma Little Leagues are calling for the immediate removal of state and regional leadership and revocation of the Tulsa National Little League Charter. And we'll get into that particular thing. But the part that I wanted to read from this is, I think, very much germane to this, I think, the question that we're going to talk about throughout this discussion, which is, what's the intention? Like, what is Little League supposed to serve? Because when the statement is, and I have to imagine that this isn't like in a charter, Little League identifies integrity, inclusion, community, and teamwork among its core values and pledges equitable opportunities for the children it serves. Look, man, for the children it serves, right? And we are inherently talking about an organization that is designed with intention, with structure,
Okay.
that is serving children in mass.
Yeah.
But then we decide to kind of like stack this multi-million-dollar advertising vehicle. We decide to stack, no, you're chilling. We decide to stack like this multi-million-dollar advertising deal on top of that product.
Yeah.
Well, look, man, now we have conflicting priorities. You know, you're telling me you're trying to do something that is for the equitable inclusion of children all over the place, and yet the event that brings in all these dollars and compels all this finance behind it, it's not equitable. Yeah, there's no amount of equity that's like, what are we talking about? And again, specifically more so when you remove some of these rule-based structures that inhibited fully intact travel teams from masquerading as a recreational baseball team and then kicking the crap out of other kids.
Correct.
Like that's what's happening, and it's been happening for a while.
Yeah, and that's where in Oklahoma, through my over a year of being embedded into all of this, the other leagues, there are 5 charters in Oklahoma for league.
Yeah.
Okay.
And some of them, one of them is just like a Boys and Girls Club or a Parks and Rec or something. Yeah.
And so 2 of these leagues are true rec. I would say 3 of them are true rec, right? Mm-hmm. You have, and they want no part of playing in the state tournament because they don't want to send their kids to get their butts kicked.
Yeah. Why would you sign up to get your teeth kicked in?
That's not fun for anyone.
Yeah.
And so now we're getting to this point where like we've just uncovered that like, hey, 2 of the 3 teams in the state tournament this year weren't even eligible.
Okay, so let's walk through the timeline again, right? So last year, issues on the softball side that spins into this year, early protest, but then now it's moving their way into a baseball program. And there seems to be a specific issue of eligibility for a player on the team who participated. And tell me about the sibling thing, because this just is crazy.
It's kind of disgusting, actually.
Yeah.
So the sibling choice rule, if you have a sibling under the age of 8, and if there's a league in another town that they can play in that your town doesn't have, or whatever, then they can go play. Well, because they're under the age of 8, the older sibling can then go play in that league.
Intention being, I'm sure you're trying to just make the parents' life normal, right?
Right.
Sure.
Trying to keep things kosher. Okay. So then the problem with this specific player for Tulsa baseball is that the sibling was registered under the age of 8 in the Challenger division for Tulsa. The Challenger division, for those who don't know, is for special needs. And it turns out that the sibling never played in the Challenger League.
And not only did they never play, but how old is this child really?
And this child is actually 10.
I think Challenger is one of the things that is, I think, probably the most pure that Little League does. If you had an opportunity to coach in Little League and you didn't spend either a practice of your team, if you weren't coaching Challenger, like working on the fields with those Challenger kids, getting through a game of baseball, I think if you miss that opportunity, man, you miss something that's really beautiful, that I think ties back to the mission statement, right? That it is about equity and inclusion. And I'll be, again, I try to state this stuff often, and I'll do it here because I think it's, again, like germane to the conversation, right? Like part of my job is running our Driveline Academy teams, right? I take checks from parents. That is my job. And my staff's job. And in exchange for the money that we receive, we spend a year helping these kids do physical development and baseball development, and we train and we practice and we go play some games. I recognize the end of the pool that I'm swimming in on that side, right? You're talking about parents that have disposable income and time, and kids who have a desire to do this thing with an amount of consistency and frequency that like kids just in a general recreational baseball configuration aren't going to have. Even more so on the challenger side. But man, I know this is going to sound maybe crazy, but I think for us, there's a lot of intention between like how you would serve kids in a challenger program and how we're trying to serve in our kids in our Driveline Academy teams program. Because the reality is that there's only so many college roster spots. Because there's only so many colleges. So the more that we continue to go down this path of youth sports specialization and professionalization, the amount of competition for like what is essentially a fixed economic resource in terms of college roster spots is only going to get greater. That continues to roll downhill even outside of the Division I level, because the more the Division I roster spots are constrained, going from around 43 spots down to 34, that then rolls pressure on roster spots downhill to D2 and D3 and to JUCOs and to NAIAs. But again, you can't create more spots. So one of the things we talk about a lot with our academy program is like, look, if I said to our parents, who again, they cut checks to us to train and give their kids an experience. If I said that like, hey, look, I'm going to put your kid into college, I would be being disingenuous, right? Because I can't guarantee that. And if I can't guarantee that at Driveline, with all the technology that I have and all the systems that I have and all like the forward projection that I have, then like who can? So what we talk about is like, well, then what's the export of this experience, right? What is the deliverable? It's not putting you into professional baseball. It's not getting you a college roster spot. It's using sport to compel you to have team sports shape your perspective of the world and everything that that's supposed to entail. And we understand that like when kids play sports, there's all these good outcomes for more positive mental health, more positive physical health. Like there's all this stuff that comes with it. But what we try to land on is like, man, I want this experience to inform the way that you look at the rest of your life. And I think that that's kind of the same thing with Challenger. And that should be the same thing with like what we're actually doing with Little League Baseball. It's not about arriving to a professionalized destination. It's about how does this experience compel you to figure out how to be the best version of an adult that you could be someday.
Yeah.
So the idea that as a vehicle to register your child out of boundary, that you would pervert the intention of Challenger baseball is so unbelievably tone deaf to me. You know, like it is just like, have we really lost the plot that significantly? And at least in like one area of the country, we certainly have. Yes. We most certainly have. We've lost the plot. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that I keep saying that to people. We've lost the plot, right? So we've totally lost it. If we're saying we're signing a kid up to play Challenger, and what we know now based on the court documents is that the child's intellectual hardship is an IEP for reading.
Okay. Kids get IEPs all the time.
Kids have IEPs all the time.
For anybody again that doesn't know, you know what the IEP is basically just they get a little bit more one-on-one attention in some form or another from staff to like assist them with tasks.
It's a school. It's a school thing.
Yeah, and that's very much not what the Challenger division is. I mean, what the Challenger division is you're talking about
Down syndrome.
Much more significant issues for these kids to navigate. And we are using sport as a mechanism to like make them feel normal and give them normalized experiences that any other kid should have a right to be able to experience, regardless of how they present, you know?
Correct. There's a whole like buddy thing where
yes.
Like where you have, you know, you bring in kids from the other leagues to be their buddy and to play with them. It's a wonderful program for these kids to feel like everyone else.
And
once a month.
Yeah. So instead of that, instead of all that intention, uh, this was a parent who basically used the Challenger program in an out of boundary league as a means to register their highly competitive player
Yes.
onto and kind of like form what, for lack of a better word, would commonly be called like a super team, right? Like that's
Yes.
and and again, if you think that this is the first, second, or 10th time that this has occurred across the country, you are kidding yourself. It is. I'm trying to speak carefully because I know things that I probably shouldn't know. Uh, Look, I'll just say this. If you were to investigate any of the state teams that made it into the big event,
Mhm.
um, the odds that you could find within those teams, travel teams, whose rosters match darn near 1-to-1, the odds are not going to be low if you're picking up what I'm putting down. Like that is a thing that's been going on for a while, and this just seems to be it seems crazy that the examples of this are trending to get like more and more egregious, and this is, I think, an example of that.
Yeah. And then to add on to that, right? I did have a conversation with Little League International after Tulsa's softball team was disqualified. And I pressed to get answers as to how Little League handles things like this. How do you handle a falsified affidavit, right?
And that's what it is. It's a literal affidavit that you have to sign. It has to be signed off by league president and the player agent. Correct?
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
And so how do you handle that, right? If a protest is you Little League have signed off on this being totally normal and legal.
Mhm.
You've accepted it, they're playing. Now all of a sudden people are showing you that it's not right. And so how do you handle that? And I was told that it's all handled on a case by case basis.
Maren, I will. When my kids are playing All Stars, to be able to get all the supporting documentation that you need, which is not only a birth certificate, but you need to be able to submit like bills from a service provider, water bill, heat bill, electric, or whatever. I've literally sat in the parking lot with me, my wife, and our player agent, and like going through these things, being like, well, man, I'm not sure that parents, the signatures match perfectly. Should we have them like redo that signature? Like these are the level of conversations we had, because I think if you're in a league who treats this thing with the intended amount of seriousness, that you are like trying to be very exact about dotting I's and crossing T's. So in this instance, where we have literal like falsified affidavits, it is just so beyond the pale of again, like the evidence is we've just lost the plot.
Yeah.
And again, this not only I think is something that like the organization needs to hold, but again, like parents, players, and coaches that make up this volunteer driven organization are also like we all wear a little bit of blame here,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I think that the fact that this is happening year after year, like we've totally lost sight of what this tournament is and was. And honestly, at this point, I'm getting messages from charters all
I would bet your DMs are a crazy place right now, because
and
the more that you surface this stuff, I'm sure what you're seeing is other people like, oh, this isn't. I would doubt that your DMs are like, I've never heard of anything like this, right? Like that's not what it is.
actually, my DMs are more like this has been happening in our for years, and we keep filing protests and we keep sending all of this evidence to Little League, and they keep denying it.
Yeah.
So what I have learned is that your protest, it comes down to your verbiage.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do not have the correct verbiage in your protest, it will get denied. So
regardless of whether there's like actual factual legitimacies to said claim. Yeah.
Correct. Regardless of whether or not your information is accurate in your protest, if your verbiage is off, then they will deny it.
Yeah.
And it's tough because it's been happening for so long, and it makes me wonder, I use like Tom's River as my example because that was the team I grew up watching. I grew up watching Todd Frazier. Like who did it? And that's what I remember about Little League and looking forward to Little League. And then because Tom's River was the team for a couple years, then you end up wanting to watch them again, right? You're like, oh, who's this next bunch?
You want to see more of the story, right?
Yeah. And now it makes me wonder, like, how long has this been going on? And like, now I'm questioning, like, was Tom's River a legit Little League team back in the day? Like, I have so many questions that I know are going to go unanswered, but it hurts to like know about it, right? So my local Little League, it's Goodlettsville, Tennessee, which won the U.S. championship a few years ago, right? And I remember like kids, and I'm like, man, like why does everyone play rec league in Goodlettsville? Like, I don't understand why everyone's playing rec league in Goodlettsville. And then I was like, oh, got it. Yeah. But also understanding that, like, on the softball side of things, like, the Goodlettsville All-Star team is also a travel ball team.
Yeah.
Same logos.
This is my surprise face,
Same logos, same color, same all of the things, right? Yeah. So now I'm starting to realize why everyone played rec ball in Goodlettsville. But and it's unfortunate that like someone had to be the example of this generation because you have the Jackie Robinson West of that generation, you have the Danny Almonte situation.
People forget.
Like,
and the crazy thing about the Danny Almonte situation is, if I remember correctly, that was before Little League changed their date rules. Because it used to be that you could get to the point where basically you could turn 13. You could be an old kid who would start the season for majors as 12 and then basically be 13. And I remember even in our local area, by the time that right before that rule changed, we had kids who were even just, Shoreline, Washington, right? We're a little bit north of Seattle, tiny little fiefdom. I mean, even at that point, we were, it was before two of our local leagues within the same district had merged. So we had North King and we had Richmond Beach Little League. And Richmond Beach Little League was just like our tiny little spot. But we had a couple kids who were their last years in majors. They were 13 years old. And those kids were like 72, 74 off the bump at 46 feet, which is a crazy competitive environment for a child to be in. So the Danny Almonte thing, that kid, he could have even been 13, but he was way older than 14, if I remember correctly. But this isn't the first, second, 10th, 20th time that this stuff has gone on. Okay, so so to again just get back to like the X's and O's of how we got here. Starts on the softball side, continual process on softball. Baseball team this year plays in a regional event that is supposed and this is just, was this the thing that came out this morning? They played in a regional event and they won this tournament, but was there actually a tournament?
There was a tournament. Was it fully Little League sanctioned is another question.
Yes.
We've had sources tell us that they had to pay to play in the state tournament.
Which again, if that doesn't send up a warning flag or two, man, like what are we doing? And it wasn't even a lot of money. It was like $150, right? Like, okay. Who cares?
Like that opens another can. There's another layer to the onion because this specific Little League in Tulsa, the people who run it also have another business, a for-profit business titled Tulsa Little League Baseball Inc. And they're currently being sued by the county for like 10 years of unpaid bills to the city and
Let me guess, field rentals?
mhm,
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
and electricity
sure.
and so the fields that the the fields that they play Little League at suddenly host U-Trip tournaments during Little League season.
Oh boy.
And the U-Trip tournaments are run by the same people who run the Little League. So
Yeah.
read between the lines.
Yeah.
But that lawsuit is ongoing.
Boy.
And so if we're paying to play in Little League state tournaments, like where is that money going?
Sure. Yeah.
Because Little League, you're not supposed to take money for the state tournament.
Never. Again, equity and inclusion, right? Yeah.
Right. And so you have that. You have the bracket for the state tournament was written by hand on a piece of paper. You had teams showing up in travel ball uniforms. There are photos of that on Facebook.
Oh boy. Well, we're just real good at telling on ourselves.
That's the other part that I want parents to know. If you're going to lie, do not post it on Facebook.
like the OPSEC is just so bad.
Because your Facebook is public. Especially if your photo or whatever it is public, it's public. And so if I can log on and look you up and see that you played in whatever tournament it was, and you're not in matching uniforms, and you're not, and it just looks fishy, like then, probably is.
Yeah. I think this is a very hilarious point, because I think it betrays a lot of the parental signal that's being sent here, which is like, number one, I'm going to be ruthlessly aggressive about skirting rules and structure that are designed for equity and inclusion, because I think I have a shot to take my 11 or 12-year-old child and assemble another group of highly competitive 11 to 12-year-old children and go make it on national television, right? And I for all of I think the reasonably assumed outcomes that come with that, whether that's increased attention that leads into undergraduate recruiting, or if you are running a travel program and the recreational program that you also happen to coach ends up being highly competitive in the series, well, like, what type of downstream economic windfall comes from that, right? Yeah. So on the one hand, you have parents who are so ruthlessly aggressive that they will skirt, ignore, and blow up all these rules to get there. But we can't help ourselves, because we're also so proud of our children, that we have to scream about it on Facebook while we know that we are violating rules. That's crazy. That's crazy.
The other thing to point out, which is what it has blown the cover off of a few of them, is that if your travel team plays, you have all of this is public. Your travel team is going to go play in a U-Trip tournament, right?
Yep.
That roster is posted online.
Which is now a thing, because it used to be that when the rec season ended, that the All-Star season started almost immediately. And I've been screaming about this for years, but like post-COVID, we've done something where we are giving them a lot more runway from the end of the regular season, which always ended right around May 31st. We're giving them more runway between when the season ends and when the tournament starts. And I think, or I'm assuming, or I'm inferring, that part of the reason is that you wanted to take, now you have your All-Star team, and you can like pressure test them in local select events, right? And the select providers recognize that there's some desire here. So there's a lot more events that are very much geared as like all-star prep. I mean, sometimes that's what they're calling them. They're calling them all-star prep tournaments, because we need more time to get our teams ready. Because again, like we're all chasing the same ESPN colored carrot, Yeah.
Yep. So you play in a U-Trip tournament, your roster gets posted online. Well, then people can match up that roster with your Little League roster. And then the nearly intact Little League comes into play.
Yeah.
And then if you, for softball, you could go play in any of the tournaments, right? And your rosters are posted online. But then you have Little League that uses GameChanger.
Yep.
And then your rosters are posted in GameChanger.
Yep.
Which then gets brought up in this whole situation because people were taking note of the fact that the game changers for the regular season of Tulsa were altered after games were played. And so then you have screenshots of what it looks like
versus
before and after.
Yeah.
And the details of what is being manipulated. Pitch count is being manipulated. The players on the team are changing. And all of it is to make it look like these kids played in the mandatory number of games.
Yes, because that is a thing that by rule you have to establish for eligibility into All-Stars. Is it's like you can't just be on the roster. You have to have done the thing.
You have to have done it, right? You have to have played in I think at least 8 of the 12 games or something like that.
Yeah, it used to, I want to say that back in the day it was like a percentage, and now they've just come up with like a defined number.
A defined number, right?
Yeah.
And you have to, your team, your league had to have at least 12 games.
Yeah.
And there has to be proof of those 12 games.
Now, so now help me with this, because I'm not even sure I understood what I read, because it sounded like what you're reporting dug up is that there were games that were 3 innings or less.
Yeah.
And sometimes with not even 9 players on the field.
Yeah.
And I've read a lot about this in the last several days. Am I remembering correctly that like some of these games were kind of like basically tryouts more than they were a game? Is there something there too?
Yeah, and that the games were an hour and 15 minutes when Little League says you have to have a game that's an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's we're going to play a doubleheader. We're going to play, 3 weeks of double headers to fit your 12 games in.
Yeah. Of course.
Like,
of course.
What?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, let's talk about, the Tulsa National specifically. If you go to the website to register, okay, there is no information on the website for softball. Never has been. You can click on softball and there's nothing there. I
want to see if they've changed it. Just because I'm just a curious little. Actually, I'm sure that when I Google this, all I'm going to get is your exemplary reporting.
Thank you.
So you now just own the space, but softball registration. That's funny. Oh gosh.
Can you register?
Well, no. No, actually, I'm sorry. All it is just it's a link to a news article about how great they are. Yeah. This is preposterous.
So
it's so preposterous.
We did get info last year from parents who tried to register and were turned away because there wasn't a league. And then all of a sudden,
they're in the Little League World Series.
They're in the Little League World Series.
Perfect.
So that was So there's just so many layers to this, and honestly, like the people that have been blowing the whistle on this, they've been trying to blow the whistle for years.
Yeah.
And it's not, and there wasn't a malicious intent behind it. It's not like they're not mad at the kids. They're mad at the adults.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the kids are being used as pawns.
100%. Yeah.
And I've not mentioned the name of any of the kids involved. I didn't even mention in my original reporting. I didn't even mention the initials of the kid involved.
Yeah.
And then that came out in court docs.
Yeah.
So now I feel horrible for that family, because if you go back and you look at the stuff that's posted, you can figure out who it is.
Yeah, really quickly. You don't have to be, Sherlock Holmes to start connecting the dots here. And again, I mean, the lack of operational security around this whole thing, this type of like brazen activity, that people were already on the trail of last year, right? Like you're on the trail of this stuff last year, and you go into this season, you're like, you know what, guys, we could lay low, but actually let's do the other thing. Like that's nuts.
What got them, and honest to goodness, I think it starts with softball, because had softball not gotten caught, baseball wouldn't have been in this situation.
Yeah.
The softball parents, some of them are still commenting like, I wish we had time to file, with a judge and blah, 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 blah. And
so, yeah, let's talk about the judicial stuff, because that's, of course, the direction that, you should have a story about Little League that ends in a judicial capacity. So you have parents. Okay. So question and concern about eligibility of the roster.
Mm-hmm.
They win.
Mm-hmm.
And then this eligibility stuff comes out, and it's like, hey, somebody goes, this is not going to work. You guys are not going to move forward. Parents on the Tulsa team go get injunctive relief by a judge who gets a temporary restraining order filed.
Yes.
Which is a crazy. You can read the order. You can read it. It's out there, and it is it's hard to not read this as either a judge who had a personal relationship with somebody in the thing, and it's like they called in a favor, like they called in a favor, and then it, came to this very hilarious conclusion that they could just kind of like TRO, or temporary restraining order.
Yeah.
There being consequences for roster eligibility, and then within like less than 48 hours.
Mm-hmm.
They go back to the district or circuit court or whatever it is, and go like, actually, we're not doing that. We are going to allow Little League to administer and deploy consequence in their event, because it's their deal.
The part in the TRO that actually, quite honestly, made me laugh, is that the parents that I'm assuming pooled their money together to figure this out didn't know the rules of Little League. And it was apparent in the TRO, because the state tournament is considered part of the international tournament.
Yes.
And
hence all this documentation that happens, that is supposed to happen upstream.
Right. And so because the state tournament is what is in question, right? This kid played in the state tournament. We know he didn't play in the region tournament.
Because there was apparently a falling out over playing time, right?
Falling out. There was a falling out.
Falling out.
There was a falling out with the coach. Well, the coach happens to be the son of the district administrator. And now we have all of this information that, there wasn't a falling out, because now the district administrator has responded to Little League, and it's part of the court documents. And she admits in the court documents that the player wasn't eligible because the dad made a mistake on registration by making the younger sibling 3 years younger, younger than what they were.
When they registered a non-special needs child for a special needs division who also was 3 years older. Yes.
Right. And so and so you have the district administrator who now admits in open court that this is what happened. And then you have now, Little League International has talked to this family, and this is also in the court documents where they talk about the conversation they had with the family, and the dad admits that he did not have the right birthday, and also says that the younger sibling never participated.
I mean, if you haven't forgotten the age of your child by, 24 to 36 months, are you really even parenting? Don't you just forget how old your kids are? That's a thing that happens, right?
I can understand if you've got multiple kids around the same age. Like maybe one's born in maybe one is born in like 06 and another one's born in 07, and you get them confused. But like there's a big difference between like 06 and 09. Or
3 years is in not insubstantial amount of time.
Right. So so that I think backfired for sure.
Well, and then they also put out, so I'm trying to remember the chain of events here. They get the temporary restraining order. Little League then responds to the court, and the court realizes that the temporary restraining order was fairly comical, so they pull that. When does the statement by the Tulsa folks, when does that come out? Does that come out after Little League vacated their temporary restraining order? Okay. And that's where the one where they're framing this as like a Little League international problem, right?
Right. They're placing the blame on the Tulsa administration and Little League International. And I don't think they're entirely wrong to place the blame there. I don't want to say this without like assuming things, but based on conversations and based on the paper trail, I think they were following directions
by someone
in charge.
Sure, which would point. So I'll go ahead and prognosticate, because I don't work for Sports Illustrated. That would be someone either basically at the state level that is kind of just like giving tacit approval to this type of rule circumvention,
right? Which
then explains, I think, the next domino that just fell this morning or last night when they are basically calling for the removal of leadership for these people.
Yes. So that came this morning and that was from 2 of the 5 charters in Oklahoma that released the joint statement and honestly, like it's not the first time they've called for change. And I do know that based on my interviews. And Little League International somehow is not aware of the first protest of vote of no confidence. It's a whole thing.
I mean, how did those meeting notes not work their way up the chain? You know what I mean?
I just think there's a lot. Like, I just keep going back to like Little League just doesn't. The identity of Little League is totally lost.
Yes.
And I think the more, like, now that you have this protest, who's to say there's going to be more to come? Like,
people are going to start digging. People are going to start digging. Yeah.
And that's when I say, like, if you have posted public things that show you're in the wrong, it will be found.
Yes.
And I know as parents, we want to promote what our kids do. We want to show them off. We want to do, we're proud of them.
Of course.
Right. But it's just like, I had a conversation with my mom about this, right? I'm like, Mom, like, why are we lying? Why is it okay to lie about this? I'm like, she's like, because she's just like, geez, they're a bunch of 12-year-olds. And I was like, yeah, the biggest lie you ever told for me was like when I wanted my cartilage pierced when I was 12, and like the shop said I had to be 13. And so we went to a different shop and you said I was 13. Like, that was just to get my ear pierced. But like, but now we're making it a much bigger deal.
Yeah, I mean, I'll put this I'll frame this in terms of like personal experience. When I first started coaching All Stars, my son was 9 years old, making his way onto a 10-year-old All Star team, and I just kind of like assisted, and I was just there, and I helped coach, and but I wasn't really involved so much with like a lot of the roster decisions. I was aware of what was going on, but I wasn't like plugged into it.
Right.
The longer that I coached, the more closer that I got to like that type of like all-star selection process.
Yeah.
And I will say this with like a lot of pride. The little league that I was with, which was Richmond Beach Little League and North King Little League, and then merged into Shoreline Little League, like we always played by the rules. Like we really did. We went through this process of assessing kids at the beginning of the year and trying to like quantify that a little bit so you had some grading. We would look at statistical performance about how these kids did who has submitted that they wanted to play all stars. Sometimes we would run like a little bit of like a tryout for all stars. And then we would get in the rooms, and then you get in the room with the coaches, and there's all like this, the coach believes that like, this collection of players can be the most competitive group that he or she can assemble. So, then you have like this broader discussion about who is and isn't the right fit. And like, man, we burned a lot of calories. We burned a lot of calories, not only like trying to put the most competitive group together of the kids who were within our boundaries, who were like legally registered to our league, right? And it was hard, but we tried to do it the right way. And very commonly we would get our teeth kicked in by leagues that like, I just knew that group was like, it was an 11U travel team that weirdly enough cuts checks to an organization in like August, September, October. And then you see them on an all-star field in June and July. And it's like the roster is 1-to-1. It's like, man, what about all those other boys and girls that are playing majors baseball whose parents didn't cut a check? Are they actually getting an equitable opportunity to participate in that experience? Like, no, they weren't. Absolutely, they weren't. So it is crazy to me that you have these two very disparate groups, right? People who understand and acknowledge what the intention of Little League Baseball should be, and they're trying to do it within the confines of the rules and the structure that they are given. And then you have these other people who are like, you know what? We want to win.
Yeah.
We want to win. And we allow that type of thing to pervert the decision-making process to a degree that it is so entirely detached from what the intention is supposed to be of this whole thing.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely insane. And I think this just goes all the way back to your point of like, man, who is Little League Baseball supposed to serve? Like what is this thing? And how, and if we are at this point where the product that gets put on ESPN is so entirely dissimilar than the intention of this thing from March through May.
Right.
Why call it the Little League World Series? Like, what are we doing?
Right. What are we doing?
What are we doing?
What are we doing? And that's where I think it comes in. Like, if we're wanting to put that competitive product on the field, we've got to change. We've got to change how it operates. And I watched this awful World Series this year, and I thought it was more competitive than in years past.
Okay.
There was better pitching. I will say there was a lot better pitching. But you can see how the rest of the team plays if it's a Little League team or a travel ball.
Yeah. Yep.
And there are things that give it away. And so I don't feel like there was anything egregiously wrong with how it played out. I do think it's weird that the host state gets its own team, by the way, but that's a topic.
Sounds very, yeah.
That's a conversation for a different day.
We'll talk about that when we don't have to deal with people like falsifying affidavits and paying, and like greasing the palms of a judge to get a restraining order.
Right, exactly. But also like when we think about like that restraining order, I've said this before. I've said it. I did a radio interview a couple days ago, and I said it on there. And we're taking a page out of the NCAA playbook right now, and it's we see day after day college athletes filing restraining orders to get an extra year of eligibility, or, to ensure that they get more money, or, whatever it may be. And now there's, like the whole NCAA eligibility thing is just in itself is crazy, but that's exactly what just happened, right?
Yep.
They wanted to keep playing, so they filed a restraining order. It doesn't matter that they were no longer eligible, because if you can get a judge to say, oh yeah, you can keep playing, then it doesn't matter.
Sure.
So, I mean, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at, last year we were watching professional athletes somehow become eligible to play college sports again.
Yeah.
Like,
my friend group, they sent me some Instagram post about a college basketball program that literally, like, their starting five is 3 or 4 players that have professional experience, and they've kicked back out into college. You want to talk about losing the plot, right? And I think this is, we should be honest about the fact that it is not necessarily Little League International that's lost the plot. It's not that NCAA has necessarily lost the plot. It's that the whole industry of youth and amateur sports. It's like we have lost the plot.
We have completely lost it.
And I think this whole story is very much just emblematic of everything that is not going great.
Yeah,
in the space.
Everything that is wrong with sports, both amateur and youth sports, is what is happening in this story right now. Yeah. And it sucks because the kids that are doing it the right way aren't getting the attention. And, from my standpoint, like, the website, I write for, it's called Softball on SI, right? Like, my job is to cover softball. Well, enter this. Yeah. It ties in with softball, right?
Yeah.
But it's just where do we go from here?
I'm not sure that I have the answer. But one thing I will say is that, like, we're talking about this in terms of, like, losing the plot when it comes to, structure and systems and eligibility and all this other stuff. Again, another thing that we're going to have a conversation about at some point is the increasing amount of children who are getting exogenous substances put in their body to increase sport performance. Like that's a thing too, and here's the worst part about it. And I think you said something, like, very just kind of like connecting one thing to another, but I want to call it out because it absolutely nails what's happening here, is what's going on with the kids who are trying to do it right. If you look at sport development as a whole, and you look at, like, the countries who at a national level are, like, very much outkick their coverage when it comes to producing, like, Olympic athletes at a disproportionate rate to, like, big, large developed countries like us, a lot of that has to do with sport federations who really understand, like, what they're trying to do with a funnel, which is, if you want to create, like, one Olympic athlete, you need to have the funnel very wide at the top. And then you're going to have natural stratification and development and stress testing over time to produce that one Olympic athlete who can then be competitive in a relevant space. What I am very much freaked out about is between situations like this, between cost affecting who can even participate as a gateway at the first place, between parents putting HGH on their kids when they're, like, 4 years old, starting in that and continuing on into puberty. We're not orienting for the big funnel, We are trying to do talent identification at the youngest level, and then try to, like, force feed all this impetus to these kids. But, like, that's not how you produce great athletes. That's just not it. You can't look at these kids in a prepubescent capacity and go, like, that's the next guy or girl, because hormones say, no, there's no fidelity to that decision. There isn't. And we've learned that lesson time and time and time again. But because of things like this, where there's multi-million dollars of television contract and advertising, and attention that comes with it, and attention that is going to potentially drive athletic recruitment in the future. Now, of course, we have all you have to do is follow the money to understand why we are in the place that we are.
Yep.
and one of the things that I do, and people that listen to the pod know this, I'm on all these the American Baseball Coaches Association, like these national national youth and travel baseball committees. And I can tell you, man, that in those rooms, we have our summit in Nashville, actually, funny enough, in November. So if you want to come and you're in the area, we'll talk about this afterwards. That room is filled with men and women who we care. And and the crazy thing is, like, in that room, you have competitors, right? People who have every reason in the marketplace to want to go out and kick the crap out of the other event provider or the other league, because that's their right to be able to do so, right? Like, if we're all making hamburgers, you can have some people that want like a $3 burger. You have some people that want a $20 burger, and we're trying to attract the attention of people who want hamburgers, right? Based on value prop, cost, experience, etc. But within the confines of these rooms, we are trying to agree upon rules, large structural changes that push this thing in the right direction. And this story in particular, I think, is just, again, doubling down on the fact that we need structural change. Yeah. You can't attack this stuff with a desire that all the parents and the adults in the equation are going to stop putting children in the crosshairs of this type of, like, man, I'm really trying to keep it PG, but of this type of intentional avoidance of facts and structure and truth. That's how far it has gone. And I just think that we have to attack it with structure, because it's not going to change. And I think your point, again, that we started talking about like an hour ago, and we can wrap pretty soon here, that, like, what is the identity of Little League International? Yeah. Like, what does this whole story portray about the gap between what the identity of that program is from March through June, and then what does it look like when it comes to Little League World Series time? Because you can carve all over your website and on your brochures and on your PDFs that, like, you're really attached to equity and inclusion. But look at your DMs. Look at the reporting that's come out. If you think that this is like an aberration, if you think this is like a first time thing, man, no shot. No shot. We have had adults who are skirting the rules and making this thing all about them and their intentions and their desires. And it's not serving the children, and it's not serving the stated intention of an entire league that serves multiple millions of kids all throughout the world.
Yeah. Ditto.
So Maren, where do we go from here? Like, at this point,
I just asked you that.
I know. But so specific to Oklahoma, right? The temporary order that they got was thrown out. They are going to be denied to continue to participate in this thing. Everything is moving forward, and at this point, it's just going to be. How are there not going to be lawsuits coming out of this?
Honestly, like, I would anticipate. I think there's grounds for some type of class action. And because I think so many families have been affected. So I anticipate seeing more lawsuits. I also anticipate seeing the lawsuit that they're also involved in separately with the county. Yeah. I anticipate that one starting to get more traction. And so I think we're going to see a lot more of that. But I think it also set a new precedent for other Little League programs. If you don't like what happened, go get an attorney. So I think we're going to see more of that. We saw, was it last year when the kid got tossed for the bat flip?
Yeah.
He got a temporary restraining order. So like, we're just going to keep, now I don't think that warranted whatever happened. Like, I think that was a little egregious, but I think we're going to start seeing more of it, and it's unfortunate, but I also think, like, I think the role models that these kids have need to do a better job of being role models, and they need to understand that if they are making millions of dollars by being a collegiate athlete, that does make them a public figure. And these kids are looking at them like, oh, I want to be just like them.
Yep.
And know that I know it's a lot of responsibility for an 18, 19-year-old kid, but like it's the reality that we're living in. And people just need to be better humans. Like on top of it, I think we've lost that plot as well. Like we just need to be better humans and treat people how we want to be treated. Yeah. All of the things that you learned in elementary school about how to treat people, like that is totally like applied to this day.
I know.
And we're not doing that anymore.
You know, this experience is like, it's so powerful and impactful when you're in it. You know, like I remember my son's 12-year-old all-star season. And we had a team that had like a couple competitive 12-year-olds, but largely our best players are like 11s and 10s. And some of that had to do with coming out of COVID. It was just weird. We had our first game. I had my starting pitcher lined up. He's having a tough pregame bullpen. His dad starts getting in his ear about it. And I'm watching this whole thing transpire like 10 minutes before start time. And I'm like, we're wrecked. Like we're wrecked, you know, like he's going to end up walking the house and it's just not going to be good. And that's exactly what transpired. We lost the first game. I had my son to pitch in the second game. He went to the pitch limit, went like, I don't know, 5 2/3 or something like that, or 6 1/3 or whatever. And like pitched his guts out, you know, like he knew that like it was his end of his Little League World Series. Last AB in Little League, he hits like a oppo triple over the right fielder's head. Like just, I don't know, you know, just like he laid it all out there. And in so much as it matters, like that was a very much like an expression of his humanity. It's like a little like 12-year-old dude who like this thing was really important to.
Yeah.
And we won that game, and that was cool. And then we lost the third game, you know. So like, but we didn't go as we call it 2 in a barbecue in the tournament, right? Yeah. Like we got one more game, and man, it wasn't even just about my son, you know, like that group of kids and the time that I got a chance to coach them for that all-star run. It was really fun. And they were good kids, and it was a great group of parents, and my assistant coaches were great. And, you know, like we didn't get the outcome that we wanted in the tournament, but like we did it the right way.
Yeah.
You know, like we did it the right way. And that's from everything from the rosters to actually like trying to be equitable with playing time in All-Stars. Mm-hmm. You know, like and look, man, you know, the reality is that like that tournament is about winning, but you need enough bodies that like you've got playing for variables. And, you know, there were kids on that team who I knew did not give us competitive leverage, but I made sure that they got their mandatories, and we tried to get more than the mandatory, because who cares? You know, like we weren't going to Williamsport. Like there was no shot we were going to Williamsport. So it's like, all right, well, what's the thing? I think the tricky thing that we're going to have to navigate now is the more that you increase the value prop of going to Williamsport, if you think that is not going to compel adults to go to the ends of the earth to try to find a way to get to the proverbial promised land, you're fooling yourself. So we either need better structure that controls for that stuff, and you need motor oversight. And I don't know that you can get there with an entirely volunteer-driven organization, or you just need to acknowledge that, like, man, the product that you're putting on ESPN is not the same thing that you're doing in the regular season.
Right.
And I understand why you don't want to do that, right? You don't want to put a kid on the bump in the Little League World Series who's going to walk 4 batters in a row.
Right.
Heard. Like, Doritos does not want to buy advertising for that, and I understand. But to continue to act like these two things can kind of coexist this way when you have very different incentive structures, I think you're just fooling yourself if you think that you're not going to get more of this exact type of situation. So it's great. Everything is terrible. It's wonderful.
Great. Everything's terrible.
Yeah.
I want to add one more thing, because I think it's just me. Being 12 years old is already hard in itself.
Oh boy, man, come on, Maren, tell him.
And I think you're as a parent, you're probably forgetting how bad it was to be in middle school. Like, I know middle school were the worst years of my life. Like, and so to be like, especially when I was 12, that was awful.
Yeah.
And so now add this national attention on top of it. Like, it's not healthy for anyone. And the way that like social media is now, like, it's only making it worse. So be a better human. That's what I've got.
Oh,
that was awesome, by the way.
Maren, you're awesome. So yeah, this has been great. Thank you for hopping on. I know that I've taken up like an hour and 15 of your day, and the odds that your phone is blowing up with the report that you just put out this morning, I'm sure is high. So thank you for making the time. Tell the good men and women, children, where they can find you.
Yeah. You can find me on X/Twitter, whatever you still call it.
It's going to be Twitter forever to me. I'm constantly pining for the old days when the other guy owned it.
At Maren_Angus. And it's the same thing on all of the social media platforms. And then, to read the work, it's si.com/on/si/softball. And I just keep putting stuff out every day. So get ready.
Babe. Like I said, I found Maren's stuff last year reading about some of the softball shenanigans. And I've stayed tuned in, so I'm glad that we made this happen. I'm glad that you agreed to come on. This has been a great conversation. And we'll talk about the ABCAE Summit if you want to do some on-site reporting about like what we're trying to do to fix some of the stuff, because there is stuff to be fixed. But this is all we got. Thank you, boys and girls. We'll catch you later.